Okay, so I'm really enjoying doing these, and I'm kind of trapped inside with a super typhoon going overhead here in Tokyo. And so I figured I would at least do one today, and the easiest one to do, I think, is probably Six Doctors era. So, what's that, 84 to 86, something like that? Um, Colin Baker. Just I'm going to do everything in chronological order. It's easy that way, but just to be fair, this is one of my least favorite doctors, and he has probably the shortest tenure of the. Definitely has the shortest tenure of the original series, arguably the shortest tenure ever. And most kind of hardcore fans who have done spin-off or have read or watched or listened to spin-off media will say that he's one of their favorites because he's been redeemed in the Big Finish audio dramas. And I have listened to a few of those, and he's really good. Uh, but I'm just judging it by the original classic series. I'm not judging it by any of the other spin-off stuff. That stuff can kind of come into play as far as my judgment of the overall Doctor, but I'm just kind of ranking the serials today. So if you're disappointed or your favorite ones in here are uh, not included, that's why. So let's start with the first one. So Twin Dilemma. So in the middle of season 21, I think it is, or near the end, after Caves of Adrazani, Fifth Doctor Peter Davison croaks, dies basically trying to save everyone, and he's replaced by Colin Baker, who is couldn't be more different as a doctor, at least from it was such a radical difference because the Fifth Doctor was kind of this nice, kind of heroic gentleman, and the Sixth Doctor is brash and arrogant, and he's just kind of a jerk. That was kind of the idea, is they wanted him to be more like the First Doctor, where he starts out grumpy and curmudgeonly and sort of slowly softens and becomes more of a grandfather figure and more of a likable figure. And that's exactly what happened. Um, for writing reasons, for characterization reasons, whatever. With the First Doctor, if you go and watch the original broadcast of the first episode of An Earthly Child, the Doctor is like a total raging prick. And so they really brought that energy back for Colin Baker. And Twin Dilemma is it's kind of got the worst. It's just kind of a perfect storm of shit, really, because it's the new Doctor. He's intentionally playing a kind of a jerky version of the Doctor, and it's also the last episode of the season. So, people who liked the Fifth Doctor or were Doctor Who fans at the time kind of get this sour taste in their mouth between seasons. And the Twin Dilemma is also infamously a bad episode. I think it's not any worse than a lot of the Peter Davison era, but it certainly isn't better. It is one of the worst of that era, and it also has a bad version of the Doctor. So, and that's going to go at the bottom. I mean, it's hard to watch for those reasons. Next is Attack of the Cybermen. It's one of the first, or is the first, obviously, with Colin Baker of the new season. They kind of changed things around for season 22. Uh, they made them 45-minute episodes, which I think, on top of everything else, that's another thing that alienated the audiences. Attack of the Cybermen is pretty mid. I'm gonna put a top a T tier sort of thing. There's some good character moments, some fun things, but and the story is not that bad. It's just some thunder outside. Um, it's not one of my favorite Cybermen episodes. I don't know. I won't get too much into it. Vengeance of Eros is definitely A tier. I might bump it up to S tier. That's one of the best of that era. It's usually considered, like, in retrospect. At the time, it was so violent. it was uncharacteristically violent for the Doctor and for the show, that it really drew a lot of cries. But it is, I mean, it's Doctor Who. It's very intelligently written. It's very it's satirizing violence in the media while also kind of having its cake and eating it too by being a very violent show at the time. Um, but it's a little bit of meta analysis of the show at that time, while being a really good story. So it's very good. It's, I think, in retrospect, watched through adult eyes and not worrying about, oh, what are the children are being exposed to violence or something like that. It's incredibly well written, paced, told, etc. Definitely the best of his era. Um, yeah, the Mark of the Ronnie. The Ronnie's an interesting character. The era. It's been a long time since I watched this one. I remember liking it. Um, I know everyone's always calling for the Ronnie to become come back when Michelle Williams, is it, that played the Missy, the female version of the Master in the new series. People were kind of disappointed that it wasn't the Ronnie. People are always wanting the Ronnie to come back, even though she was only in this series 3 times. But it's still like, it's a female renegade time lord. This is definitely an area that could be developed a lot better in the show. Let's see here. Two Doctors. Two Doctors, man. There's so much good and there's so much bad. It really is, like, it's a multi-doctor story that's not like an anniversary special. So that's already odd. It has some real weird racist tropes that are kind of inexplicable. There's a section with that has Fraser Hines returning as Jamie. It has Patrick Troughton as the second Doctor. One of the best Doctor companion pairings there is, in just bar none. And it's spectacular to see them back and see their chemistry on screen. I wish it was for a better story. Uh, I can't say that it's like awful and there's not redeeming features. I think there's enough. There's enough that I'll put it on the probably the bottom of B tier. I'm gonna put something else in there. Time Lash, legendarily crap. Uh, there's, I think, I don't know. I guess that's probably appropriate. See here, Revelation of the Daleks. Revelation of the Daleks is a really weird one. It's got, I'm gonna put it in B. I'll probably put it over here. I don't think it's quite A tier. Some people say this is like one of their favorites. It definitely has atmosphere. It definitely is trying to be something more. Like, it has more kind of allegory. It has more, side characters. There is a very strong theme, kind of a funerary sort of atmosphere. It's super weird. It's definitely a departure from what we come to expect from the perennial Doctor and Davros Dalek story. Yeah, I think I'll put it on top of B. I think that's appropriate. Okay, so that was his first series, and at the end of that one, I think he says he's going to Blackpool again or something like that. That doesn't happen. The show sort of gets axed at the end of his first full season, and they almost cancel the show. When they come back, there is a 4-part, well, it's a 13 episode, but 4 sort of adventures, but they're all tied together, called Trial of the Time Lord. So it is, at once, it is the Doctor himself is on trial, but of course, metaphorically, the show itself is on trial. The first part I really like, and a lot of people think this is not the best, but yeah, this is Trial of Time Lord Part 1, or is it the Mysterious Planet, I think it is. I really like it. It's kind of lame, but it shows you kind of jump forward in time. It's anachronistic in that you have some parts of it that are kind of in a courtroom, and some parts of it are happening on this planet. It's the first appearance of Sablon Glitz, and I love him as a character because he's like very enjoyably evil. Um, you could say he's a rogue, but I mean he's evil. He like kills people in cold blood. He doesn't really give a crap. It has Perry and the Doctor, and they have a much better relationship. You know, at the beginning, his first season was with Perry, and he strangles her. He's abusive. He calls her names. He calls her like an idiot and this and that. And he's just really abusive because they wanted to have this arc where he starts as just an absolute irredeemable prick and then becomes softer and more lovable. But they kind of when the show was threatened with cancellation, they were like, okay, we're gonna cut out the middle part and we're gonna show the end where he actually has a good relationship with Perry, and then it's good because Nicola Bryant and Colin Baker have really good chemistry, and they're great friends and they're great on screen together. And when you see a more mature version of their relationship, it is it's much it's like I wish we could have seen like the middle where it's being developed, but it's loads better. Um, the story itself is kind of mid. It's got a kind of a doofy robot as the villain, but yeah, I really like it. It's I don't know. There's some episodes that a lot of people don't like, but this is just one of those where it's just a personal thing, and I that's the one that I'll watch the most. Next one is what is this one called? Oh man, I forget what this one in called. Hold on a second. Mind Warp. Yeah, I'm gonna put this down here. I don't really like Mind Warp. I know it's the return of the little slug guy, and he's really good. It's got Ryan Blessed, but I, man, I can't really get into it. I tend to think the next one is Terror of the Vervoids is better. It's more straightforward. Terror of the Vervoids is it's just and then there were none. Then there were none. Agatha Christie, slowly killing people. It's robots of death all over again. And the last one, what is the last one called? It's Ultimate Fall, last part of Trial of the Time Lord, and that's where it really starts to fall apart. Terror of the Vervoids is decent, but Ultimate Foe, they go into the Matrix, and it's weird imagery, and it just doesn't really work. The Trial of the Time Lord, for what it was at the time, I find it very analogous to what the Flux was in the new series last year, where show was off for a while, had a break. They really needed to reconfigure some things, and they wanted to tell like, okay, we're going to do our best to tell this one long cohesive story, and it kind of falls apart. Like, it just doesn't really work. It had very high ambitions, and it's admirable, but it was, I think it was best. I think they made the best decision, which is that the show needed a longer period of review and being revamped, and that's why we got the Seventh Doctor's era, which is one of my favorites. Anyway, so yeah, I think honestly, I don't think there's any S. I think I'm gonna put this down here. I don't think there's any real classics of his era. The best are Vengeance Navarus and Mysterious Planet, which are both very good. These are all fine. These you can skip. These I would avoid at all costs. Time Lash and Twin Dilemma are somewhat notoriously the worst, and they will break your brain. Anyway, so that's my Sixth Doctor serial review. Hope you enjoyed it.